This is tangential, but after the last time we recorded, I was taking my dad to the doctor's appointment.
Mm-hmm.
When we got there, he was struggling to get out of the car, and this lady came over and asked if he needed help. And he said no, because he needed to get himself to do it. It's good for him to push himself. And so she chatted to us for a bit, and then he went inside, and then she came round and she chatted to me through the window. And a couple of times she apologized for offering to help because she felt like she'd done the wrong thing. I said, no, it was really nice of you to offer to help. She goes, yeah. She goes, but I should have noticed that his wife was in the car with him. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
What did you say?
So this is where I actually feel quite proud of myself because, of course, what I wanted to say, oh, actually, I'm his daughter, was what I wanted to say. But there was this little hesitation in me. I felt her anxiety that she felt like she'd said the wrong thing by offering to help. And I thought, if I tell her, if I point out her mistake, I'm not convinced she won't ruminate on that for a long time. And I don't want to make her feel that terrible. If I thought she maybe could have laughed it off. So I bit my lip.
We should plug that in the misunderstood episode.
Misunderstood for being a 72-year-old man's wife.
Well, to be fair, he can be married to a much younger woman.
He could, but that wouldn't be the first place you would assume. So if you saw, like, with an age gap like that, you wouldn't go straight to, oh, I wonder if that's a younger wife. So you just wouldn't make that assumption.
You might.
So I think she must have thought I was a lot older and he was a lot younger. I think she thought we were closer in age.
Maybe.
Anyway.
Well, I was thinking that you were going to link that to this topic, but we can just go there.
No, I just wanted to tell you what happened. I suddenly remembered when we hit record, and I could have told you off record, but I was like,
people want to know
on the podcast.
Well, it is linked because we recorded this episode actually the last time, which is why you said it, because it triggered the memory. But we are re-recording it.
We are re-recording it. There was a few issues. There was a few issues with the last recording, as in we hated it.
We don't do that a lot, but we've done it before. But
no,
yeah,
only a couple of times when we've gone back. So
let's do it
round
right this time.
Let's get it
let's
right.
Do it right. What did we do wrong?
I don't even remember. I think it was just a bit unfocused.
Yeah.
And so we were jumping about a bit. But this week's episode, as you will probably be able to determine by the title, is about outgrowing friendships, relationships that moving apart from people who perhaps were once very important to you. And I guess particularly that the most challenging times when you would like to move away from a relationship that the other person doesn't want to. And it feels a lot more natural when two people might just grow apart, and that's a mutual kind of separating of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I think we got a bit stuck because actually when we were talking about how would you end a relationship with somebody because you felt you'd outgrown that relationship, and we were both a bit stuck because neither of us have actually done that. I've ended friendships because of something that's happened and it's been explicit, as opposed to, oh, I just think that we're very different now and we don't have anything in common. And to what extent do we owe loyalty because of our history with a person as well? Discuss.
Yeah.
Do you think, actually, I'm going to ask it like this. Do you think one day when we stop podcasting together, which I'm assuming has to happen at some point, can't go on forever and ever and ever, do you think we'll stay friends?
No. No, definitely not.
Do you want to say more about that? Because I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure because I think, how would that even work from a
logistics,
contact, both of us being busy? It feels like our real common ground, because we're very different as well. Our real common ground and where we connect is this stuff.
Yes. And it might be that if there's no ill will, that the relationship dynamic would just change. And I think what you're speaking to, that if there isn't ill will and if there's just a mutual circumstantial shift, that is an easier thing. I think that could be navigated. I don't think it has to be like, we'll just never see each other or talk to each other again, but it would be a different way of it happening that we would both probably be able to manage.
I think about it sometimes. It always makes me feel very sad.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
I don't think about it. It's not something I think about. Because it's all about the present, baby. No, I just don't think of it. What I would picture is that because I'm not like a WhatsApper except for work.
I know, that's what I mean. I can't see I feel like you would drift off. That's how I would
So
imagine.
I have a relationship with Katie.
Mhm. So you've maintained this relationship with Katie, who lives in the UK as well, and you 2 kind of have the common ground a little bit like we do around this because she works in this area too. And maybe there's something in the dynamics because 'cause you're both introverts
Yeah.
where so I'm curious what that dynamic is, and
Well,
I'm
the thing is
mixing.
though, to be fair, I don't talk to her very much. We're not as probably close as we used to be. Close. It's weird to say it like that, but we don't talk that much, and that will impact a relationship. However, I do have friends. Like I have a friend, her name is Katie, and we've been friends since we were 10. Actually, even before that.
Another Kate, just say
Oh, I'm
another Kate.
sorry. Yes, I didn't even she's obviously Katie though.
Obviously.
Obviously, that did not occur to me. Um, no, this is a friend that I've had since we were about 8 or 9. And we talk twice a year. We talk on my birthday and we talk on her birthday, March and June. So it's not even like spread out evenly. And when we talk, oh my God, she is one of the people I will pick up the phone for no matter what I'm doing. And we talk.
As long as it's one of your birthdays.
Well, these calls don't come in otherwise. But like, I love her. And I think I've actually even referenced her on the other podcast a few times because she's just this symbol for me. And that is okay with both of us. And we just pick up where we left off and we keep talking and we're like, okay, see you next year. Talk to you next year. And that's that. And that friendship has changed. And I guess there's times where I think about how close we used to be and how I wouldn't mind being very close to her again, but it's just circumstance, right? Like we just still live different lives and now this is just the way it is. And I think that friendships can be like that, right? Like that they can, but a dynamic does shift. And I think there's some kind of grief in it, because even if there isn't an ill will, that there is a change. And anytime there's a change that isn't necessarily a choice, it just kind of happened, that
Mm.
there is a loss. Um, but I also have friendships where I have actively moved a bit away by choice. And then I've also had friendships that somebody has moved away from me by choice. I've been broken up with in one friendship at one point in my life, which I've also referenced on the podcast. But I think, and this is why the last episode was difficult to record, I also have friendships that I feel that I have outgrown, but they're so old that I just, we just stay in it, and there are times where it irritates me to stay in it. Like there are times where it feels a bit like a self-compromise. But then there's other times where it feels like, no, it's just there's just been a dynamic shift and I've changed the way I categorize it or I think about this person and their role in my life, even if she doesn't think that. And that's just been for me to wrap my own head around, right? Because the actual relationship stays intact.
So where is the point then, I guess the line where we say, because of the history, I'm staying? I mean, would you that these friendships that you're talking about, would you get out of them if you felt like you could? If you were given an out, do you think you would choose that?
For one, I would.
Mhm.
For another, I wouldn't.
Okay. What's the difference between
Yeah.
the 2?
Okay. One, the relatability is so weak that I I don't receive anything from the friendship. I don't get anything from it.
Mhm.
But the other, I do. It's just different. It's just different things. It used to be a very, very close friendship. And for many different reasons, some of those reasons still exist. So, for example, this is a friend who is just, she's just like easy to be with and loyal and fun and easy. Like, there's just something about being connected to this person for so long that does pay its own dividends. And that has remained. But it also used to be a friendship where we would talk and talk and talk, and we related on so many levels that I have completely outgrown. So she's somebody who will want to talk about, she will want to gossip a lot, and she'll want to talk a lot about like, she laments about aging all the time and weight stuff and old, old history stuff, which I love a good nostalgia, but in a way that feels like it keeps me stuck. in like an older identity of mine and all, and in a place that makes me feel like I'm just not getting. I don't agree. Like the values have changed. My values have changed. And that's where there's a dissonance. And that part doesn't feel as good. So that's the part that is shifted in the dynamic. But the other remaining factors are still there. And that's good enough for me. And it's just about recategorizing that for myself.
Hmm. So the clash of values, I think, makes a lot of sense. If your values are a completely mishmash, they're not in alignment. You struggle to find a place of value where you connect. You're not going to feel connected to that person. It was interesting to me what you were saying about the giving out and not getting something back. So I'm interested in this idea of reciprocity, because I imagine most people who feel like they've outgrown a relationship are not feeling that kind of cycle of reciprocity in there. What if it's a bit hypothetical, so maybe a bit tricky to let's go with it. What if you have a friend, someone you were friends with for a while, and they become depressed and they
Mm.
don't have anything to give? And this goes on month after month, and now we're getting into years. I believe this was probably the reason why the friend broke up
Yes,
with
it
you that you've
was.
spoken about back in
Yes.
college. What's your instinct about where your line would be that as the other person who's the friend of somebody who is unable to bring anything to a friendship?
Well, on that, it's a bit different because I have been there. And so I will always have compassion for that. And I will not walk away from somebody in that position. I won't see that as a lack of reciprocity. And maybe I should also restate it. I think with that friendship I was talking about with reciprocity, it's not that I'm not receiving, it's that maybe there's more of a clash of, you know what I mean? Where what I am receiving, I don't even really like. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So that's maybe a bit different. But I personally, I guess the way I feel about it with depression is having been somebody who has been broken up with because I was in what you're describing. I was that person. I, I could never ever look at somebody who's in that situation and not have a great amount of empathy for them. And therefore that alone would keep me there. But if I had never had the experience of being depressed, I don't know that I would be able to understand it. And I think that I can appreciate why that person walked away from me. Like I totally get it. But personally, I guess if you're asking me the question, I would stay. I think I would need some boundaries about not absorbing it, but I wouldn't abandon.
Hmm. So when is it about? It's like interesting. When is it abandoning? Just even
Mm.
the language, because you could even say with the person where the values have changed, that to leave a friendship or any kind of relationship, I think it's different with like romantic breakups, but let's talk about friendships then. To leave a relationship like that, is it ever not an abandonment? Surely it always is going to be experienced as abandonment by the other person if they are also not moving in the opposite direction.
Yeah. I think if you're choosing to step away from somebody, I mean, the abandonment as a connotation we could talk about, but it is a leaving. It is
Hmm.
a chosen leaving.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you need to carry shame about that if you're making an informed choice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think abandonment almost has this connotation of somebody doing something wrong. And I don't think that's always true.
I think for me, the difficulty is for myself moving away from relationships and friendships like that is just being aware of how much pain that could be causing. And I find that hard to not carry. You know,
Okay.
I don't feel like I can just go, well, actually it is my, even though I believe like, I should be allowed to leave,
Yeah.
even though I believe that, I cannot. I don't know, again, it depends on the situation. Maybe if I was mad at them. But
Well, that's what I
if I
mean. Like, is
wasn't.
there a situation where this is relevant or contextual? Like, where would you be making a choice to abandon even against that feeling?
Well, I think that feelings would sometimes hold me there. And that's the feeling that it's interesting because if I feel like I'm stuck in a friendship that I want to pull away from and I'm struggling to do that, I feel angry.
Yeah. Yeah. The
It
resentment
really,
goes.
it really, I feel angry. And there is someone in my life where this is playing out a bit. And I read every message this person sends is landing on me like a manipulation. And I don't know that it is. But I can't, that's what I'm seeing. And it seems so clearly a manipulation. But I don't know that I'm seeing it clearly. Do you know what I mean? But
Yes.
I can't see it any other way. But I have enough self-awareness to go, this may not be a manipulation at all. You may be reading into something here.
A manipulation of what? Of keeping you there?
Yeah.
Oh, like a guilt trip?
Yeah.
Like, so does this other person suspect your distance?
I don't know. So I'll try and pull away, and they will I'll get a message. Trying to think if there's any chance they would actually listen to this. I'll get a message, I broke my back and nearly died.
Oh, yeah.
And how can you not respond to a message like that? And then it's like, and you can come and visit if you want. And you can come and visit, and you can. And I'm like, I know I can come and visit. I don't want to come. They're not. This is not a local person.
So can I ask a question
Mm.
about the original reason or impetus for your feeling disconnected from this person in the first place is what?
So during lockdown, we would talk on the phone every fortnight or so, and I would come off that phone call absolutely exhausted. I feel like I am talked at, um, interrupted. When the last time I saw them, I felt that's probably the last time I've been properly triggered. Like, I was triggered because the way that they were talking about their relationship just reminded me of sitting listening to my mum at times.
Hmm.
And it was just, I mean, I wanted to I was so I can't this is what being triggered is. Like, I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs.
Okay.
And it's interesting because my reaction was to be so angry with her inside, and on the outside, it would have just looked like
Yeah.
nothing was
That's
going on.
typical.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about this?
Mm.
I haven't gone into it.
Mm.
At first, I thought you were going to say that the conversations you were having was like an emotional dumping, that you were getting triggered or being talked at in a way that was manipulative, and that that's what you were responding to. Was this trigger based on your own stuff, or was this something about their dynamic with you or the role that they needed you to play for them?
I think it's a combination because none of the triggering with my mum's stuff has ever happened before with this
Okay.
person. That was on this particular occasion.
Okay.
But previously I would say it was emotional dumping. I remember
Okay.
one time I was, oh, do you remember like before I came to see you that first time when I'd had a real emotional break? Like, I was really struggling. And I remember driving from London to Bournemouth and crying the whole way back. And I'd arranged to speak to her on the phone. And I spoke to her on the phone, and she just talked at me for an hour and had no idea that I was just listening with tears running down my face.
Okay.
You know, it's such a mismatch.
Okay.
And then, as I was passing the services, I was like, I used that as my excuse to go, oh, I've got to go into the services to get some fuel, or the rest stop to get some fuel. She was, oh, but we haven't had a chance to talk about you. And I was like, yeah, I know.
Okay.
And then I've got myself, and then I was, yeah, anyway. So
Okay.
that's one that I have managed to reduce contact down to a bare minimum
Okay.
until recently when it's like been ramping up again. And I just want out.
Well, there's something about the way you're describing that that leads me to feel like, and I recognize that I don't have enough information, but like that maybe that thing you're picking up on around reading things as a manipulation is like that there's something about the tendency that doesn't just exist in the here and now, but has always existed and was in fact the impetus for this feeling in the first place of taking up a lot of the space in the relationship
Hmm.
and manipulating you into passively sort of accepting that. And if you are picking up on that, I guess what makes it difficult for you to own that? Is it that you don't have a clarity? Like, there is that the dynamic? Are you not sure if that's a valid thing?
I think I feel like there's a fragility in her and a lack of support. So that's, I think, where the guilt comes in, that for me to really, you know, if I were to pull the shutters down and go, I'm out, um, yeah, it just feels unkind.
Okay. Does it feel like something that takes from you or steals something from you that is part of the dynamic or part of your responsibility? Because I feel like sometimes staying is about thinking this is something for me to work through and I owe, like, I don't want to walk away from something because of my own limitations. Or does this feel just like almost like you're sacrificing your own energy for somebody else to be kind?
Yeah, it feels like the second. I don't
Okay.
feel like it would leave something unresolved in my process to walk away, particularly. Yeah.
How do you differentiate that circumstance from what you would tell a client or tell how you would think about somebody else who's having like people pleasing boundary issues?
Well, hmm, can you say the question again? I can't hold it in my head.
Okay. How would you differentiate this experience from another person's experience that you could see more clearly from a people pleasing boundary issue?
Okay, I'm just going to say what first came in my head. I hear it. Okay. Well, I should be able to handle it. We're talking about at this stage quarterly contact. We're
Okay.
really not talking about something that if this was like every week, I would have to.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it's almost like I can bear it, so I will.
So the cost benefit ratio of leaving versus not is not high enough.
Hmm. Yeah. But also I feel like I am trying to leave. But in terms of having a direct, I don't want us to be in contact anymore.
Hmm. I hear you.
That
Yeah.
conversation is a, oh,
Do you know what? It's important to have this conversation because with the way that boundaries are discussed, people pleasing is discussed, I think there's a lot of almost perfectionistic pressure on having really solid boundaries right now. This is very trending. And what you're naming is the nuance where it's like, it's not taking enough from you often enough to warrant the discomfort
yes.
of the other. And is that valid? Do we need to
Yeah.
feel bad about that?
Hmm.
Do we need to feel like lesser evolved humans?
I'm gonna say no. I don't want to. I don't want to. Don't make me feel like a lesser evolved human. Not that you can make me feel anything, but you know what I mean. Yeah. No, I don't. I don't. Yes, I think that's it. I think it's not. It's not big enough
Okay. I
for
think it's
that.
important. It's
You
important
know.
to name that. Like
Mm,
maybe it's like even offloading the guilt of like that you should be doing something. And maybe there'd be a point where it would become big
mm-hmm.
because like small insults over time can also become big enough. Maybe there just hasn't been time for you to suffer.
Yeah, needs to get bad. Needs to get worse than this in order for
You need to
yeah,
get totally burnt out. That's how our
100%.
recovery
Yeah.
works, isn't it?
You need a rock bottom. There's a few more layers of hell to get through first.
It's funny because I have a friend who, this one I'm talking about, where it would, the reason I don't break up the relationship is because it would be unkind.
Hmm.
I feel more responsible for it than I feel that she is responsible. So it feels different, like than yours in that I feel like I'm the one who is like, I just really don't feel connected to you anymore. I don't think you feel that way. So it feels more like my doing.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, never mind. I'm just gonna stay. But it's distant more. It doesn't take anything out of me really to stay. It's not that frequent. Same thing. It's not. But if it was more pervasive in my life, I think that I would feel differently.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
that's a big thing. I think it's that frequency of interaction. Same with family members.
I know. I was thinking of family members as well because that takes a whole other level, doesn't it? In order to, and some people do and need to break off those relationships with family members. If I think, I think of certainly certain family members, if I had friends in my life, that was the dynamic, we wouldn't be friends.
Yeah, no tolerance or less
Yeah.
tolerance. Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
fair too, because it causes so much more rupture in so many ways with
Yeah.
families.
And we don't choose our families as well. And for many people in families, you've got different generations, so there's different generational stances and viewpoints that just don't vibe with
Yeah.
my values. But the concept of you being a combination of the five people you spend the most amount of time with. What do you make of that?
Well, most people,
I know it's gonna be like,
like the
I like my
people in my
kids.
house, like my
Yeah.
children and my dog
Hmm.
and my husband. Like, no, I don't. I feel
Hmm.
very different from the people I spend the most amount of time with.
I think this is a concept that comes up a lot in the personal development world. It's like if you are growing and evolving as a person consciously, that it would behoove you to spend time
Yeah.
with people who are on the same path doing the same thing. That if you always stay with the same people that you will be the same person, because we are so affected by who we're with, and
Yes.
different versions of us can show up with different people. And I think that that can be misappropriated, I think in quite a selfish way, where it's like, okay, well, then I'm only going to associate with people of a certain status because
Yeah.
I'm looking to elevate.
Yeah.
You
Does
know,
that happen a lot?
well, I have a friend who's like that, very much like that.
Hmm.
She is so judgmental about how ambitious or driven people are.
Yeah.
And those are the people that she wants to hang out with. And she doesn't have any patience for anybody who is not that. She sees me as ambitious because I've built my business, so I get in there. Yay.
Or not. Yay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like snobbiness in a way it can
Yeah.
become. And I do actually, now that I'm framing it that way, like, yes, I know people who only will hang around with, they don't say it like that, but they'll only hang around with a certain status of people
Hmm.
because they would like to identify as that too.
Yes. Hmm.
Ew. I hate that. But I think that's a different thing than like wanting to build more supportive voices around you. Like, for example, Mike, my husband, is somebody whose self talk is so desirable, I think,
Hmm.
because he's always like very compassionate. And I do think that living around his voice has helped me consider having one like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Just
whereas
consider it. Just
yeah,
consider it.
well, that's all I need because it used to be that I lived in a house where there was constant criticism. So it's no wonder that one, like living in that house, that was the voice that I had. And now in this house, I actually have changed my voice. Is that a credit potentially to the people that I'm around? Yeah, probably. I can't deny that that's probably been an influence. And I think I've got another friend who's very much ends every single conversation. It's a group conversation because there's group texts and groups chats and things. And it's like, okay, enough of the negative talk, like always needs the positive ending, always needs the optimistic outlook to the point where I feel like it's toxic positivity. But I know that the reason she does it is because she very much believes that if she surrounds herself with optimism, that she will feel more optimistic. And there's something to be said of that. But like everything else we talk about, it seems like it's a spectrum
Hmm.
and that you could also really like deny a reality by doing that in the same way that your friend might deny exposure to diversity of opinion and lots of things by only surrounding yourself with a certain cohort. Like I think there's something to be said of choosing influence, but also not to the extent that we are rejecting other influences.
Yeah. And I think having therapist friends has been brilliant for me. There's just been so much alignment in values and things in common. And I have a lot of friends who I was friends with before that. And these are people that are still important to me. I would say I probably feel more emotionally connected, mostly to the friends I've made later in life
Yeah,
because of that connection of values.
right.
And because we want to have conversations about what we think of as quite deep themes. And that's interesting to me. Whereas some of my other friends, it's a lot more about, I guess, kind of gossipy, about
Yeah.
this person talking about other
Yeah. Are they
people a
older
lot.
friends?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's like the friends you make in adolescence and young adulthood would tend, before you really have to get to know your values too much. They're a lot of the friends that I find that that's who I'm finding the dissonance with, right? Like, is that because the friends that but how much, it's so hard to make friends as an adult if you're an introvert. Like, it's not the same. So there's something almost like a scarcity of if I cut ties with people I don't necessarily share the same values with anymore, my pool is going to be smaller because a lot of my friends come from my history,
Yeah.
and my newer friends don't feel as secure.
Mm.
Um,
I've had it a few times where I've gone to certain events and been chatting away with someone, had a great connecting conversation. And then they're like, oh, let's meet up. Let's go for lunch. Let's do this. And I'm like, I don't know if I have space in my
yeah.
life for another person. I mean, this just sounds like, oh, look at me. So I'm going to shut up now because I'm irritating myself.
What are you looking at?
I was about to get my calendar out because I was going to look at how busy I am. It's like a badge of honor, you know?
Yes.
I don't have a free day for lunch until August.
Oh, well, I feel the same way, but it's not because my calendar shows. I was like, I don't have space because I only have a limited number of spots.
Well, I think something in the extrovert, if you connect with somebody, they might they can assume it means that you want to pick up a friendship. I'm going again tomorrow. Last month I went to a women's, I don't even know why I'm talking about this. I don't think this is going to go anywhere. But I went last month and I met this woman there. Her name was Petra, and she had different color eyes. She was so striking. And we just had the best conversation, like my favorite kind of conversation. She told me about this dream that she had. I told her what it made me think of. And she was like, oh my goodness, that is the exact topic that I've been grappling with at the moment. So I basically interpreted a dream for her. And then we just had this like real moment of, I don't know, meeting. And it was such a warm hug afterwards. And it was lovely. And we could do that and then just say goodbye.
Say goodbye.
Yeah. Whereas
Yeah.
sometimes I have these moments with people and they want like like want more, and then I feel guilty. Interesting. I don't know why I said that. I said it because it's true. I don't know why I feel that. I feel guilty, like I'm leading them on or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yes. There's something about it though that feels like that woman that you're Petra, like feels like it's like that's a case of two people with healthy boundaries
Mm-hmm.
or healthy attachment styles versus sometimes when there's somebody who's like, "Oh, I want to be your best friend now," like that can be an attachment style too.
And there would be times that I picked up friends. I've picked up friends at play sites. One of my closest friends to me, I met her on a retreat
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, and we become super close. So I'm trying to even think now when it feels like an invasion versus when it doesn't.
You ever had a friend though that you have grown with and both of you have changed and it has worked out and you've grown together?
Yeah, so my friend Anne Marie, we've been friends since she was 16 and I was 18. And we're now really close still, but we're very different. We're very different. And I think how I feel around Annie, which is really lovely, is I just, it doesn't matter even if we've got nothing to say. It really,
Yeah, I like
she
that
came
kind.
around for dinner this week and we didn't really talk much, even though she was around for dinner. We
Yes.
did a bit and we kind of didn't really talk much. We were both a bit tired. And I really remember when I was not well with my pituitary problem, she was one of the people that I could still be around because I was so exhausted all the time. And there was only really a smaller group of people that I felt comfortable being around, and she was one of them. And we've been on holiday together loads of time. You know, we spent a lot of time together, and it's effortless, but it's not effortless because oh, we're just chatting all the time. It's effortless because we don't have to.
Because you don't have to. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that kind of friend so much.
Yeah. And we're very, very different. Like she's none of this personal development stuff, none of like therapy, all this kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
sometimes
It's
that's
just,
really nice. Really
it's not her
refreshing.
thing. There's no judgment about it. She doesn't have strong views about it at all. It's just not her
Part of her,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I think friendships serve different functions for us. I noticed this with raising my kids, especially my 14-year-old, and watching the way like she's now leaving middle school and how friendships are for her. And I noticed too that I project my own things onto her friendships. Like she's got this group of friends and she's got like some older friends that came from elementary school that it's a different set. And so the other day my dad was here. My parents were both here for the graduation. And my dad just like asked her, "Who's your best friend?" Because of course my dad has to rank everybody. And I said, "What? You don't have to have a best. Like it just can be many, many different kinds."
Hmm.
Because I'm always defending, even though I will ask my child that too. But I'm like, Dad, like you don't have to make it someone the best. Anyway, I digress. He was asking her, and she said something like, "Well," and she named this girl, and I was like, "That's not your best friend," like because in my mind, I'm like, "That's your friend. That's your." I don't know. Again, I'm projecting, but like it's almost like that friend that she picked to say is somebody who I see as she's allowing my daughter to explore a different part of her identity, which is exactly what she's supposed to be doing right now. And that friend is a conduit to that.
Hmm.
And but when I would think of her best friend, it's like it's her old friend that she sits like she comes over to our house and they just don't say anything and they just like hang out in each other's presence. They like um
Exist.
yeah, but what's that word? Parallel play kind of thing. And to me, like their friendship is so solid. It's such an anchor. It's always there. But that's not the way that she's valuing things right now because her moment in time at this moment is development, right? So it's like, but other times when my daughter's like burnt out or like, and then she'll invite that older friend over, and it's like, we do have different friends for different needs, and also the frequency with which we see certain people could be the, like, leading force in that friendship. Like, I've got a friend who I see barely ever, and if I saw her more often, I don't know that we'd stay close, you know what I mean? And so there's something about, like, I need you in this amount, and you might need me in that amount, and that's might be how the energy really works at its best, and I might need you at these times versus at different friends at other times, and I think sometimes when we're talking about outgrowing a friendship, especially when we're talking about changing values, sometimes it's not a black and white issue of like, you're my friend or you're not my friend. It's like, I might need to renegotiate the amount and frequency or the way that this dynamic, like the balance of it. And that might work better with me now,
Mhm.
like, and maybe hopefully for you too. But like, I think that's been the case for me more often than it being an issue of like, I'm completely outgrown you and goodbye. It's just the renegotiation piece, but that can be hard to do. But I think it most often happens quietly. I don't think we necessarily have these big old discussions. And in our last recording, I think you asked, would you rather know? Would you rather have somebody say to you, I'm going to name the elephant in the room, the fact that we haven't been texting as much, we haven't been hanging out as much, like there's been a shift. Would you rather know why? Or would you sort of allow this thing to just quietly happen without necessarily confronting that there's a reason for it? And yeah,
And how
yeah.
do you feel about that this week?
This week I feel like no. If there's a shift and I'm picking up on it, if I'm the recipient of the shift, but certainly if I'm the orchestrator of it, like, I think sometimes some things are better left unsaid because sometimes we know. I think that sometimes we get it, and sometimes naming it makes it bigger. It makes it something it doesn't need to be. Like, it might just be the natural course of two humans changing and evolving, and that might be like, well, leave well enough alone. I don't wanna have a conversation about it unless it's an obvious affront.
Mhm.
Or if I've
Yeah.
done something, I wanna know about it, but, like, if it's a normal evolution, I don't need to talk about it, I don't wanna talk about it.
If it's a normal evolution, I would want it named because if it's a normal evolution, that feels much easier than if it's something. Otherwise, I'm always gonna wonder, was it actually something I did? Were they pissed off about this? Were they pissed off about that? Did I miss something? Was there a blind spot somewhere?
Yeah, I
Whereas if
guess.
it's just a case of we're not yeah, I guess. You don't have to
Well,
agree,
I think it's
darling.
because I'm not thinking about being the recipient as much. I'm thinking about, like, I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna tell you. Like, it just feels like too much. It's I don't wanna be responsible for that.
Well, yeah, I think it's horrible. Obviously, it's horrible to be pulled away from if that's not what you would want, and to be the puller away. To
Pull
say
her
to
out.
say something, to have those conversations. And I have had some difficult conversations about friendships, but there have often been events that have,
That's different.
instigated that. I know. I know.
Like,
I'm
I
just
wouldn't
saying
say no, go ahead.
I'm just saying I can do some difficult conversations, but I
I'm
think
not sure you
this
can.
episode, it sounds a little bit
Oh,
like,
I feel the
"Oh, just
opposite.
don't say anything."
I don't think so. I do have this woman who I was friendly with very superficially. We didn't hang out except in groups. And she has completely shut me out this year. And I did not like I don't have any idea why, except for I think she might be going through something. And that is one area that I feel like I wish I had clarity because every time I see her, I'm like, what the heck? We're not even close enough for me to have done anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a very superficial relationship. Maybe I'll take that part out. I
No,
just
you
needed to
don't.
say it out loud. That's been bothering me a lot.
Yeah, no, but I think that's it though, isn't it? Is it just wouldn't you rather know?
Yes, in that case,
Yeah.
but she might also be like, "It's nothing, I'm just going through some things myself." But we're not that close to name it. It'd be weirder if she said it.
Yeah, I'm not saying going to ask, but I'm just saying if you could know the reasons, if you
Yeah.
could know, would you not want to know?
Yeah, but there's a difference between knowing and saying. Um,
Yes. When your friend pulled away from you in college, who was really close to you,
yeah.
your reaction, what was your reaction?
Devastation.
Mhm.
Um, because this was at the time when I lived in London, so it was just like her and I was already on such terrible ground that and I had nobody then. So
Mhm.
it was just me living in the same space as her. But she did it in a way that was very cold and very, very just not compassionate at all. And that was part of the problem. Like,
Mhm.
that was part of the issue. But I also just felt this deep amount of, I mean, to be honest, our friendship had been codependent. We were very codependent people with each other. And it was like having the cord cut at that time. The irony of this situation is this is actually the only friend I've had we are still very close. We got back together 2 years later. Um, and we both since evolved so much independently. We're both very different people now, but it works.
Mhm.
But at that time, it was a codependent relationship that had stopped, and my identity was in that friendship. So the way I knew myself, the way I oriented to my own sense of safety was in that friendship. And so when that fell apart, I did too. I think that was one of my very rock bottoms for sure. If I could name like two in my life, that was one, that time period for various reasons. But also, that was the impetus as well, again, as a rock bottom tends to do, of becoming more independent. Because without her friendship, I had to start again. And I think I crowded out a lot of friendships because she was my best friend and she was the only one I wanted to associate with. And so everybody else was like subpar to her. And after that friendship ended, I had to learn how to be me and then to make friendships for me that
Mhm.
would take more of a primary role in my life. And I did that following year. It took me like, I went back to college for my senior year and completely rebuilt my friendships. And that was the best year of college that I did have. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that that disruption of that friendship was vital for my evolution at that time as a young adult. So there was grief, yes, but there was also growth. And I think those two things do go together.
Mhm. Yeah. So how does someone handle grief, would you say? I'm wondering, like, people that are listening to this, I imagine most people have probably been on both sides of this, would you say? There are people that would have probably pulled away from relationships, ended relationships, and people that have been ended with.
Mm. How do you deal with the grief?
Yeah, or even just to kind of acknowledge that's there because it's not something, we hear about heartbreak from
Yeah.
romantic relationships and all of that, but having a friend choose not
Yeah.
to be your friend, especially when, in our culture, it's quite okay to have more than one friend. Whereas with
Yes.
relationships,
Like
obviously,
polygamous
like,
friends.
yeah, there is polyamory, but most people still subscribe to the one partner idea. So it feels like someone to say, I don't want to give you any space in my life, in my emotions, in my thoughts, I think is an extraordinarily painful thing to experience, especially with a friendship that's been really, really close.
Yeah. But I almost think, to your point, when there's an official breakup, which is, I think, why romantic relationships would be easier to have a grief process around, is very explicit. It's very like, we've got the whole, I'm going to go get my pint of ice cream and sit on the couch and watch movies and cry, for a week now. And that, you're not really afforded that in friendship breakups because it's not like I'm breaking up with you. How often does that conversation happen? I think in friendships, it's more likely to be a quieter, more gradual separation. And so there's not necessarily this feeling of having a directed place and time to grieve the way that
Hmm.
you do with an explicit breakup. And I think in my case, I don't know how many people have really like had a friend be like, I'm cutting you off, goodbye, like I hate you now. That was almost a little bit easier because I was allowed. It gave me permission, I think, to react.
Hmm.
Whereas a different kind of breakup that's more like a gradual thing. At what point are you like, oh my gosh, this has happened and I need to take space to mourn it? That isn't something we do or it's not normalized. So I think there's something about the acknowledgement that something has happened or is happening and naming that to oneself on purpose and really confronting it.
Hmm.
Because it's easier to not. It's easier to just keep, it's like the frog in boiling water. Like you don't necessarily notice as it happens, so you don't have to pay attention. And it's something that I think after a while collectively does need our attention. But how you grieve is your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. Like I've got a process for it.
Well, I had a friend pull away, was kind of doing it because we were very close in each other's lives pretty much daily. And then she was going through some life changes and she was pulling away. And we would make plans to speak and then she would cancel. And then she was just being really flaky and the relationship changed almost on a dime when her life situation was changing. And, I spoke to her about it at the time and mentioned it a couple of times at the time. And she would go like, oh, yeah, yeah, no, I know I'm being rubbish, blah, blah, blah. And then nothing would change. And then there was a bit of a straw that broke the camel's back moment when I was supposed to be going out to visit them. And again, there was all this flakiness about this visit that I'd bought flights for. And so I just said, I need to step back from this friendship, because that was worse for me. This sort of, this pulling away, this in and out, just kept leaving me like, I don't know where I'm at. Is this because she doesn't want to be in the friendship? Is this
Yeah.
because there's something else going on? I'm trying to talk to her about it. She won't speak to me and all of this. And I thought, I can't stay here. Like, that was too uncomfortable in order for me to have my feelings about it and to grieve, if you like, because it did feel like, it felt like I'd already lost her.
Mhm.
But it was like, it's like, the phrase like breadcrumbing. It'd be like, okay,
Mhm.
and then I would pull back, and then there would be this sort of coming forward. And so I said, I need to step back from this friendship. And because you know some of the story anyway, so I did, probably for about a year when we reconnected. And the reason why we ended up reconnecting was because I was actually showing a mutual friend the messages on Facebook Messenger that we'd sent as I was explaining to them what had happened between us. And they accidentally sent a thumbs up,
Oh.
which these are messages that are like 8 months old. Do you know what I mean? So
Can
then
you
I
even
get a
send?
message. I get a message from her going, everything okay? And I didn't even realize it had happened. So I didn't even see her accidentally hit the thumbs up. So I'm going down and I get a message from her going, you okay, hun? And then I open it and I was like, which opened up, and she said, she goes, I knew at that point we would probably be able to be friends again because I knew you must have been looking at the messages.
Yeah,
So,
that's
so that
exactly the
obviously meant you
vulnerability.
cared.
Huh.
And we have had a reorienting since becoming friends again. The dynamics have shifted. We're not as in each other's pockets as we were before. We've been able to just find, and that's worked for me because I didn't want to go back to what we were before. That was part of
Yeah.
my reticence of picking the friendship up again. But we were able to, not even explicitly, but just kind of find our way to
Right.
a new balance where
Yeah.
we'll message once a week, maybe twice a week, and see each other every
Interesting.
couple of weeks. And that works quite well now. So in response to the grieving thing, and this is why for me I'd always want to know, is because the closure helped to just
Yeah.
go, no, this in and out, this I if
Yeah.
I know for sure, okay, this is done, that's when I can start moving on with
But
that.
but that came from your acknowledgement of what was happening in your own decision of like, no more for me. Like there
Hmm.
takes a certain amount of consciousness and awareness that something is going on to make a decision of here's the closure I'm offering myself. And then you can feel free to grieve. I think the grief is harder when you haven't made that decision, or you're keep hanging on, or you're sort of not looking at what's going
Hmm.
on. It can be
It
easier to do for avoidant people.
well, it already felt like she already had pulled away, so I
Yeah.
did feel like I'd been left.
Y Sure,
But
but
there
I think
was, yeah, I know.
there's gonna be people who are like, "I don't wanna see it." Like, you know what I mean? And I think that it's the seeing it part that allows you to grieve.
Oh, you mean you think some people just
I think some
ignore that it's
people.
even happening
Mhm.
in
Not that
themselves?
they would be like, "Oh, no, everything's fine." But it's just I'm pretending I didn't see anything, and I'm just gonna pretend that's nothing happened, like, it
Mm.
doesn't exist. Not that I am in denial, like, of it, it's just that it just don't think about it.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, okay. I hadn't thought of that.
'Cause that would have been I'm not a denial thing, but more like a, "You don't want me? Okay, I'm not thinking about you anymore."
Mhm.
And then there would be no process to be like, "Oh, that happened and there's feelings around it." I would have just been so like, "Never mind you then." And
Mhm.
okay, like it never happened. Nothing exists there.
Well, that would have been my default, and I've done a lot of work on my avoidant attachment.
Yeah.
Because that would be if I feel someone pulling away, I'm like, "Okay, fine, shutters come
Right,
down."
right.
And
I don't want you anyway.
I've done that in the past, and I am much more, I've done it in a few situations now, this work on just stepping forward to try and actually see what's going on. And it's not natural because the part of me just wants to go,
Yeah.
I can shut my feelings off too, you know?
Yeah. 100%, that's what I mean. I think
And
that's why
and that
grief is
can
harder.
yeah, I was just gonna say that can make the grieving harder as well. As well if you're stuck in a cycle of self recrimination.
Yeah.
So
Which
I
can be a
think
way
some
of
people
avoiding it.
avoiding what, sorry?
Again, I have that theory that, like, if you are blaming yourself for things, it's a way of avoiding the actual grief.
Okay, 'cause it's almost trying to figure it out, getting into sort of analysis more
Blaming
than
yourself like you were in control of it. but or like if you
Okay.
can stay in shame, you don't have to deal with the reality of the thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Well, good
Okay,
chat.
Sarah has been clawing her way through this episode, waiting for
I
this
don't know.
moment. So, waiting for it to end.
Why has it been so difficult?
I
It felt
don't
like
know.
such a good topic, and it's felt like it's weaved all over the place. If this was helpful, let us know. If it wasn't, I think
Sorry.
I'd rather not know
See?
on this occasion, because nothing can do about it. Once it's done, it's
Yeah,
done.
we'll see. We'll see what
Mm,
YouTube says. That's where we get a lot of our comments. But also,
mm,
if you want to leave us a review, a good one though, that would be good.
yeah, but not off the back of this episode. Make sure you've listened to some of the other episodes. If this
Yeah,
is your first episode, fair play for making it to the end.
I
But
don't think
yeah,
it's that
don't
bad.
don't rate based on this one, please.
All right, and we will
Okay.
be back next week. And no, we won't. We will be back in 2 weeks for
Yes.
another as yet undetermined topic.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Bye.